We're live. Okay, awesome. So we're live. I back talking with Maura, and I always call her Maura Eliza because that's her alias.
I will forget my real name at this point.
Yes, but the owner of Flex Health with Maura. So you guys know my good friend, expert in German new medicine. We collaborate all the time about everything, and this is going to be probably the most fun collab we've done yet because we're actually both also walking through it ourselves. So basically woke up one day and I was like, hey, Maura, you want to lose some weight? I want to lose some weight. Why don't we like do it with a group of 30 women? And then this was born. So we were just going to connect today and chit chat about weight loss. And, you know, in this hour, just kind of talk about her, what she brings to the table, what I bring to the table as far as like, you know, why we put weight on, what we intend to have this group look like. And, you know, I'm sure the conversation will flow into all kinds of amazing topics about like different topics on what individually we've as a team decided are these kind of like things that people are missing when it comes to weight loss. So I know a lot of people in my network, at least, including myself, I'm like, what's it going to take? Like, I've never been 30 pounds overweight, right? And granted, I mean, I'm doing some things like more sugar than I have, things like that I am going to cut. But I also know that there's these big emotional components because I've been walking through that and figuring that out. And so Maura, her real niche right now is post-divorce. We all know that stuff comes up in the holidays. That's like one of the most, you know, I've been divorced for 10 years and it still comes up for me. Like I still had an incident last night. I mean, I'm calling it an incident and I'm big on verbiage. You all know I'm super big on verbiage, like not playing the victim and being very careful about your perception of scenarios. But I had like a true incident last night where like, you know, it's like 'tis the season for trying to collaborate with my ex, his mother, like figure out, you know, what the kids are doing, feeling boundaries being violated, all that kind of stuff. And so it's so interesting how we still see that. So I resonate with her offer super well. I can't recommend doing that work enough, whether it's with her or somebody else, just doing that work. So both of us have been divorced. Your family stuff comes up over the holidays. Like, my goodness, also have that going on every day. I mean, I think we all have this going on every day, but we all don't. It's like we don't acknowledge it, right? That's the second we reach for the SSRI or the antidepressant or the bottle of wine. I'm saying
or
bottle,
overspend or try to, you know, overeat.
Yeah, food is
over.
fungus,
You're over
right?
it.
Like, I'm gonna be really honest. I said to my good friend Tori last night, I was like, she's like, Chelsea, what is going on with you? It's time for you to do some deeper work. It just must be because you cannot stick to Whole30. Like she's like, you've been telling me for 2 weeks you want to do Whole30, and she's like, you're the most driven person I know. When you want something, like you do it. She's like, you take action, you build companies. She's like, I don't understand. And I'm like, Tori, me either. But all I know is that I'm getting up at night and making things like pizzas, like level bullshit. Like I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on with me.
Well, that's a good point because, you know, most weight release programs obviously do some variety of hard focus on what you're eating, movement, whether that's high intensity or weight training or whatever, and completely ignore or maybe give a slight nod to like the emotional component.
Yeah.
But the emotional is such a driver of it. I mean, of course, what you're eating, how much you're eating, when you're eating, and movement play a role. And one of the first things that because you and I have been talking about this for like a year. This is not new weight for either one of us.
Right.
But I had a moment maybe a month or two ago when I was like, what if the answer was just so stupid easy? Like, what would that answer be? And then I remembered, like 5 days of the last 7 days, I had French fries, chips, or like sweets. And because I was thinking of them in different categories, I was like, oh, it's been a while since I've had French fries. I was not connecting that like all of those. It was just like I asked,
All of them.
I got this obvious answer. I have made adjustments, but of course that's not all that there is to it. I know times that when I've had a bona fide addiction to sugar, like the processed sugar, that was all emotional. And like,
well, I mean, like expand on that, because here's the deal. Like, I'm always dig. You know, I think you can only go down. You go down as far as you go.
mhm.
Why are you eating French fries? You know, chips and sugar. Like, look, I'm not anti those things. I'm anti when they start to tear your body down, right? So,
Oh yeah.
and also we have to explore this idea of like flow state and seasonal living. Like, we can't really argue that those things aren't necessarily nutritious, but it's like seasonally we should be changing the way we eat. So I'm not one of these people who's like, you need to be on carnivore for 20 years, right? Like, I'm
Right.
like, that doesn't make sense to me, because I'm like, especially as a female, I'm like, all right, we're always going through phases. Like, people would like, I was dairy free for 2.5 years, felt amazing. But then when I got pregnant, I was like craving dairy, like whatever the mineral profile was in dairy was clearly like what my body was asking for. And I can bring that visual with my bioresonance device. So I can, even if I'm not convinced, I could scan myself and see I wasn't reacting to dairy. So it's like, all right, like this isn't dairy, right? Then I had that wild, crazy detox where I like mucus cried for like freaking 7 weeks. Like, I've never had a 7-week sinus infection. I mean, y'all, if I'd have gone to the doctor, they would have put me on like 50 rounds of antibiotics. I mean, for 7 weeks straight, I snotted the most green snot and coughed up the most green stuff I've ever seen in my life. I was telling Maura the other day too, like, I got this migraine, had this resurgence of migraines, like, which is interesting. Like, I still am not coming off the platform of I healed myself of migraines. Like, I know people are like, well, whatever. Now here you go. You had one. You want to admit it. It's like, here's the deal. Like, I'm being open and saying they have come back. Interestingly enough, showed themselves. And I told Frank, I said, the thing that is most interesting to me, I'm talking to you and exploring your version of German New Medicine and what you're telling me about the brain and fluid, which you can tell us about that in a second, was like, they're coming up because the same thing that came up when I had them and healed them 8 years ago is the next layer of what's coming up. I know it because me and my husband were going through it thick 8 years ago when I healed them. It was like this thing between us. We were having like some church hurt and some family stuff, and we were in a big transition of moving, and we have found ourselves in another big level up, like right now. So I'm like, okay, that's so interesting that that's coming up, and the level up that we're both in, we need to be on the same page. So I'm like, back then there was certain healings where we got on the same page, and now I said to him the other day, I can't help but wonder if some of that is like, because once the migraine presents itself, the healing is there, right? Like, the healing's there. So it's like, I was like trying to go back to whatever the conflict was in that second. And I'm like, but it's just this concept of like fluid, which is what I want you to expand on.
Yeah.
With German New Medicine, when fluid goes to an area to do healing. This is what I want people to understand. Because I have been told by multiple people, including the naturopath that trained me, everything from your lymphatics need to move, which is accurate. I can see that on my device. My thighs right now and my pelvic lymphatics are completely blocked, and I cannot get them to shift. So I'm like, okay, I need a lifestyle change. Like, I probably need to work out. Like, I probably need to have more sex. Like, I'm like, I need a lifestyle change.
Always more sex. Always.
Right. I told one of my clients last night he didn't call me. I said, text me when you have that stuck feeling after your coffee enema, because just out of curiosity, I want to scan you. And he's been texting me at like 1 a.m. I'm like, go have sex with your wife. Like actually don't text me then. Like, I'm like, no, it's not like, he's not texting me. You guys, I want to be really clear. He's not texting me looking for anything like that. I said to text me because I wanted to do a scan to bring a visual, but those texts I noticed have been coming through at like 12 or 1. So now I'm like, all right, I don't even need to do the scan. I know what's missing. Right?
Yes. Well, okay. So we'll talk about fluid, but we'll also talk about that connection piece. So the first thing to understand is that fluid, the body needs fluid to heal. Healing happens in a fluid environment. So
in water, living water, healing water, like a baptism.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And if you think about it from a biological point of view, your body will die of dehydration before it dies of starvation.
Mm.
So certain conflicts will cause your kidney collecting tubules to shut down because your body is like running this special program where it thinks, oh my gosh, we're about to be in a famine. We're about to be without food, without water. We're going to be, and those are exile conflicts. And these are literal, but also metaphorical. So exile conflicts, we don't really have the same kind of thing that we had in ancient times where you could like literally get kicked out into the desert. But we do have big moves for work or big moves because you got married or you left, whatever. That can be, you don't have a community, you're like suddenly in a new place. That can trigger an exile conflict. An abandonment conflict, I don't need to go into that because like we all know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And a survival conflict. So you find yourself in the hospital or you're having like really pains that you're concerned about. You're not eating. Your body is like, oh, we could die, and it will start hanging onto water. So we can have like an overall like swelling fluid retention, but it's also part of the healing process. So the headaches that we talk about during healing, the migraines, those are all the body sending fluid to the structure that's actually built in the brain when we're in conflict. When the body doesn't need that anymore, it sends fluid to dissolve it and to push it out. So that can feel like a dull headache. That can feel like a sharp headache. In the case of migraines, it's usually a conflict that was really intense, really short. So while we usually have changes on the psyche, the brain, and the organ at the same time, in the case of that really short, intense conflict, you'll have changes on the brain and the psyche, but it maybe didn't get all the way down to the organ because it resolved so fast. And you still have that fluid being sent to get rid of that structure on the brain. So we look at migraines as particular types of conflicts in particular areas that really press on the meninges, which have a lot of nerve endings and nerve fibers. So it can be really painful and can create like nausea and like just kind of depending on
Like
which
auras.
type of conflict it is, and auras and nerve issues, things like that are consistent with migraines. So, but back to this fluid, if you're running more than one conflict, which we can run more than one conflict at the same time, the body will send that fluid to those areas. So if you have an infection or if the liver is healing, the body will send some extra fluid to that area. So I got really curious about why women carry fupas, that fatty upper pubic area, the area between your belly button and your pubic bone. Why do so many women have like stubborn weight in that area? And I thought, well, if in German New Medicine, probably it would be like a double conflict where the body is sending fluid to the organs under there. So what organs are under there? Your ovaries, your uterus, your bladder, some parts of your colon, like the lower parts of the colon. Yeah, the cervix will be there. Your appendix will be there. Mm-hmm. And so what are the conflicts around there? And that's going to be part of the program, is like getting an idea, listing those out so that you could be like, oh yeah, that one's me. And then let's journal about it. Let's put in some hypnosis. Let's do something about it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because like it's like funny. I know myself, I don't carry a high toxin load. Like, I mean, I can see that on the scan, but I also just know in my body, like I don't carry that. But but bringing a visual to that with the bioresonance device, I'm like, it's definitely energetic, emotional, like for sure. I can just tell. And then for a long time, I personally resisted that idea because, you look at your life and you go, well, I've been trying to love my body for 3 years. I've been trying to do this and the needle hasn't moved. But it's like you don't often need one thing. So like you need to use things to open pathways. This concept of not idolizing things and opening pathways, I am so big on it that I never shut up about it. Like, it's like my husband was like, so maybe it's time for you to like exercise and trust your heart. Like, that's the one thing that I don't do. Like, I'm like, okay. And I'm like, it would make sense that my body would like put on weight, even though, and be in chronic pain and be sending me messages if it still needs something. So people will say, "Oh, I'm doing everything." But when I ask people often and I go through my list of triage questions, I often never find they're doing everything. You know what I mean? Like they
Right.
think they are, but they're not. Like, so, like I do coffee enemas. I have great skin. I take Oliveta internals. Like I do like the things that you should do. I do the everything good, relatively clean lifestyle. The thing that I need to clean up, but in the interest of opening pathways for release, not because the thing is the idol, right? So when we get in, which we're going to talk about really what the group's going to entail and kind of what we've decided would be productive for results, it's like we're not doing it because they're the idols. We're not doing it because they're the only way. We're doing it because everything is about opening pathways to the mind. Everything is like, okay, if you're distracted with fluctuating blood sugar levels, this is just one example. If you're fluctuating blood sugar levels and you're distracted and you're like in fight or flight all the time, you couldn't possibly renew the mind and get clarity. Now, I know some people are like, I don't want to always be renewing my mind. Like, that sucks. I get that. I get the true embracing of sort of the 90-10, right? Like, I'm all about that. Like, I recently decided I was going to have a glass of wine every now and again. I haven't had glasses of wine in like 4 years, and I'm like really enjoying that. But I'm
when
like,
you told me that, I was like, oh, what? She did what?
oh my gosh, I haven't like there were things. Here's what's so funny. There were things that I like quit doing to cure migraines. Okay, this is a true story. I actually correlated all this just now. There were things that I did to cure migraines or to, at the time I didn't know about opening pathways. I was just like, yeah, you eliminate everything and you see what's causing the migraines. And the commons are like chocolate, red wine, coffee. Like those are the tops. So for like years, I was like rigid about chocolate, red wine, and coffee. This is what makes me laugh right now. And I'm not saying I have fleshed all this out, you guys, but migraines have resurfaced. So I had a migraine after delivery. I had another one really back to back with that fever. And then I had one 2 nights ago, which now if I just kind of turn and look at the migraine in my mind and just say like, I don't really care about you, it's like de-escalated super fast. Like I'm saying, I don't even have to reach for like medication. And we're talking, I lose my vision. Like when I have migraines, like I get a visual aura and go blind. It's the most random thing. Yeah. But this was so crazy the other day. I realized I'm eating chocolate again, tons of it, probably way too much, right? That's like the thing that I reach for if I'm starving. And I am drinking wine and coffee. Like my husband is like making me coffee every day. And like, I'm enjoying it because it's great. Like, I'm good with it. So it's like funny. I think the natural thing would be remove all those things again and get really rigid. But I'm pressing into this idea that like, it's truly not those things. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, it's not actually those things. I think my mind that it would be easiest. And if you guys want to read a book that this concept kind of is fleshed out. The book, The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno was one of the books that changed my life. And I know Eileen McCusick talks about it. Like there's several people who are females that reference this book. He did his entire body of work on back pain and how the brain will throw a pain symptom or a pain signal to distract from the emotion that is going on in the brain, or that's how he phrased it. Yeah. Which to me made total sense.
Well, going back to this whole idea of like looking at things holistically, when do we reach for the chocolate? When do we reach for the wine? When do we reach for the coffee is sometimes a reaction and a response to stress. So I was saying I had a legit sugar addiction that I tried just abstaining. I get to day 29 and I'd be like, give me the effing sugar. Like it was just like still such a white knuckling struggle to get through. Eventually I was just like, freaking forget it. But I had one day where it was absolute revelation. I will never forget the moment. I was actually telling somebody this story a couple days ago. I was walking to pick my son up from school and I was thinking, give me all of it. Give me all the dairy. Give me all the alcohol. Give me all the chocolate. Give me all the drugs. I don't even do drugs. I'm like, give me a big glass of wine and throw some benzos in it. And I was like, I want it all. And by the grace of God, that moment was like, wait, what is going on? I don't do drugs. It's not like what is going on? And then I realized oh, I'm just like really struggling. I'm like having all these emotional issues and I just need to
Yeah.
like cope in some way. And it just led me to be like, okay, well, instead of doing any of those things, I'm gonna take a bath tonight. I'm gonna like journal. I'm gonna have a good cry if I can. People don't like it. Actually, the lady I was telling this to a couple days ago, she was like, well, that was not the answer I wanted. She literally said that to me. And I was like, well, sorry, you get honesty from me. Like that was my experience and never struggled with sugar addiction again. I can eat it and then not eat it. It's not,
Yeah.
um,
That's me. Like I could put down coffee. Like I don't feel like I don't feel that addictive property because I know what it is. I want connection. Like I told I'm like, when I started drinking coffee again, it was because my husband is totally geeked out in coffee. He has a coffee enema company called Inner Brew. You guys know we sell enema coffee. So he's into
the best coffee ever.
coffee and he's into roasting and now making his own super delicious coffee.
He makes great coffee. Like,
yes.
And I am super picky. There are restaurants and like cafes that I will not go to because their coffee sucks. So I'm like, not that place, this place.
It's amazing.
His coffee is great.
Yeah, and like, I'm saying this because like he knows like this isn't like me. I really don't like the dynamic of people showing up like trashing their significant other. So that's not what this is. But what's interesting is like our biggest struggle has been connection. His biggest family overcoming has been connection. My biggest family overcoming has been connection as well. So like basically like we like when he started getting into coffee, I was like, and he like one day he just like offered me a cup of coffee and I was like, yeah, because like I wanted the connection, like I wanted the nurture like so bad. And I'm like, that's why we reach for that stuff. And it's not even like now I'm like, it's not bad. Like I'm like, I was telling somebody the other day, if somebody told me to give up coffee right now, I would be like, hell no, because that's like my favorite part of the morning. Like that's like me and my husband's like time to like connect. I mean, we have 6 kids, we have a lot going on. Like I'm like, I'm not gonna give up that. You know what I mean? Like, and he's even like, if you don't want it, you don't have to drink it. I'm like, oh no, I am like getting this damn coffee. Like I'm drinking this.
Well, that's a very natural thing. Like we were just talking about the abandonment conflicts that are so common. We live in social structures as much as our culture wants to ostracize us and be like, you'll be alone in your house and you'll be happy. And we tried that all together apart bull crap when the lockdowns were going on. That's not biological for us. We live in communities, we thrive in communities, and our bodies. So let me just geek out a little bit on German new medicine. Is that so there's different areas of the brain, right? We have the brain stem, which is like the oldest part of our brain. It's the first thing to develop. It runs our hearts, it runs our digestive organs, it runs our elimination, all the absolute base level survival, first need on Maslow's hierarchy of needs stuff. Then we have the cerebral medulla, and that's the middle part of the brain, the larger structure. And that's kind of getting into more connection and how do we value ourselves, like a little bit removed from just surviving. Now we're like kind of getting into thriving in a sense. And then we have the cerebral cortex, and that's like the most evolved, quote unquote, stuff. It's all about social structures and like saving face and like looking good, not just being in the community, but looking in the community. So when I was talking about the parts of the biological programs that retain water, that's in that brain stem. That's where that conflict is. That is so essential, like base level piece of it. So it's not something that we can just get rid of, do without. And it's also part of why I think your advice to your client to go have sex is so important. And it's so profound. It's so moving. There are people who've built entire bodies of work about how sex is so important physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's not just like a itch you scratch every once in a while.
No, like, and it's not just like a job, right? It's not just like, I mean, especially if you're in a partnership, like I'm like, that's which this happens to be that scenario. Like there are other scenarios where you would want to be really mindful about who you're connecting your energy to. Like, you're a single mom. That's one of those areas. Like, that's an area that you have to be a little bit different in that, right? Like, you have to really draw the line between just promiscuousness. It's like you have to connect with who your energy feels good in, and think about the other factors. But even what we're touching on now is what we just really wanted to bring to the group, because I'm like, it's deeper than that, right? I've known that this weight was deeper. And then I've also been like, okay, I mean, I had some belief systems myself. Like, so the only times that I've ever been skinny or the weight I want to be, right? And right now I'm fine, but I know that I have like fat. So let's just be really clear. I know that there's fat that could go. I know there's water retention that could go. I don't necessarily think my size is like a problem. I just think that for me and my body type, I know where I need to be. Just like you're a small person. You and me kind of have the same ideal goal. Like, I thrive at like 120, but what I realized is like right now at 150, like I'm okay. I'm still the same person. I'm not experiencing a big drawdown, but in my mind, like I have this belief system that like I can't get there unless I'm sick. Like I'm like the times that I've gotten there have been either in sickness or in punishment or in XYZ. And so I'm like, I'm exploring this idea right now, like in real time in this group. Like I'm like exploring this idea of like, but why don't I just go take the next step and work out? Right. Just in love. Like my husband's like, that's genuinely what you're missing. He's like, I cannot believe it. He's like, but it was so funny. He's like, it's so funny that your default in your brain, because we were talking about this the other night. I was like, I can see why people reach for the Ozempic. I can see why people reach for the Adderall. Like every time that I have been in, okay, this is going to get really deep. Every time that I've been in what I thought was an ideal state, right? It was actually high chaos. So now I'm exploring this idea of like, that used to be my normal. And then I did this healing. I did this big step out of like, okay, now we don't do chaos, right? Now we chase peace. Like really since 2021, when literally the naturopath who both me and you know and have had training from, it's like, he was like, over and over, just like, you need to go be a happy mama. You need to go be a happy wife. You need to go be peaceful. And I was like, okay, like if it's that simple, like whatever, right? Like how am I going to build a whole program practice around that? But he was right. Like opting out of one fight at a time, like not the belief system that I have to fight for life, like not being addicted to chaos is true. But my body has had this adjustment through that, right? I've also had babies, I've had mineral stuff, but my body's had this adjustment to that. Like my body has, in a sense, I think, put on like a padding or a protective armor, so to speak, in certain areas, the fupa area and the front. Like, those, and looking at women, I was at a basketball game last night with my daughter, and all the women there who had weight on all have it on around the middle and the thighs. That's everywhere they have weight. They don't have it anywhere else. The thyroid, from the thyroid to the vagina, I'm like, that's where the weight is.
Yeah. Crazy. It's interesting that you're bringing that up, because the last time I was a weight I was happy, quote unquote, with was the beginning of the end of my marriage. Like some things happened that just kind of turned things upside down. And and that connection is not lost on me as well. And just kind of working through like, no, it's okay. It's safe to maybe not even go like as deep as I was there, as under 120. I don't need to be maybe that deep, because I was also doing a lot of food restriction or just like special diets, which is kind of accounted to food restriction. On the flip side, like going back to the straight up traditional weight release techniques, you suggested I get the app Better Me. Yeah. And I resisted hardcore, but
no, you guys, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Resistance is, let me just be open. I know Chelsea, I trust her.
Resistance is a light word. I said to Maura, hey, for this group, do you want to run this group with me? And she's like, immediately no, with Whole30. Okay.
Yes.
I was like, okay, got it.
I'm opening up. Okay.
Well, 24 hours later, hey, I'm there with you. I'm like, I have been out there preaching like hell no to restrictions. And I mean, I had an eating disorder for 10 years. So I'm like, I had an eating disorder and an Adderall disorder. So I'm like, no, I wasn't a disorder. I'm saying I liked Adderall and liked to not eat. So whatever that's called. It's like, call it fun, right? It's like, I call it fun. I'm grateful for those times, but it was not healthy, arguably. So I
like
left.
part
She
of
said
my
that about Whole30. Then I said, I'm using this app Better Me because it gives you these workouts and like immediately, isn't it so funny how we immediately find the one thing that's the trigger? So for me, it's like the working out part. She's like, no, the meal plan's on there. No, 1400 calories. No, that is starving.
Yes. It put me on 1400 calories. And I do actually stand by this. Like, I learned recently about something called the Starvation Project, where they took a group of men and they put them on 1500 calorie diets for 6 months. And I have had people come through my practice, women coming through my practice, obese women who are like, I'm eating 1000 calories a day, which we can all agree is not safe and obviously was not effective. The body was making adaptations, and my suggestion to them was always to increase their calories. So I was listening to this podcast about like all the things that happen when you're not eating enough. So it made me really reflect on my own history and like how actually I was basically restricting calories by the age of probably 12 or 13. And like, that is just such an ingrained part. Like, it obviously seeps in so deeply to young women and was still kind of something I was practicing later. At the same time, when I did just open myself up to trying the app and started kind of trying to accurately log what I was eating, I was kind of surprised because, I mean, for one, I was actually surprised that my calorie count was what it was. It was ranging around 1800.
It's not that far off. It's probably not that far off.
It's not terribly far off, but I would have assumed, I would have sworn up and down that I was probably eating at least 2000 calories a day, like pat myself on the back. Yesterday, I ate 2000. First of all, I had one day where I ate 1200 on accident, like not on purpose. And I do think that we have like fluctuations. You're going to have some days where you want more versus other days, and kind of being okay and understanding that. But the day that I had 2000 calories or probably above it, I felt stuffed. I felt like kind of uncomfortable. And I could tell that I was just like, oh, that was actually probably too much for me. So the thing that I have, revised my perspective on this to use it as like, okay, I need to at least eat, unless I'm straight up choosing to fast, which I have strong opinions about that as well that we can get into. That I want to minimally be eating 1400 in my opinion, and then maybe 16, 17 but it also gave me like more insight into my movements and my exercise. I was kind of in my mind doing more than I realized, and kind of like, well, where's little places that I can be putting a little bit more, like it's inspiring me to dance more, which I'm inclined to do anyway, but I also count that.
I love that app. Has every kind of workout, so whatever you're into. And granted, like, look, this has been my this is why I said let's do a group, because this will push me. I like collective accountability. Like, I love collective. Like, I'm the type of person that if Maura is like, hey, I'm counting on you, I'm like, I'm there. Like, I'm that girl. Like, I'm like, so trying to do it by myself at home in isolation, like, I'm like, could work out, could watch Gossip Girl. Like, I mean, I am just very like that with myself. But anyway, I'm like, so I wanted to put this group together and then I was like, hey, why don't we explore like the depths of all the cool stuff that we talk about with bioresonance and with emotional release? Because that's also just, I really believe the key that people are missing. Like, I actually hear a lot of women who are like, I've tried everything and I can't lose weight. And they come through my practice. And I think this group is good for people who also like, your weight loss goal doesn't have to be like big. Like, you don't need to come like, I need to lose 100 pounds, right? Like, obviously you're welcome, because we're going to give you the tools that will set you up for that. But like, when we were talking about it, it's like, it's a lifestyle, right? It's a lifestyle of releasing that leads to weight loss. Like, it's a lifestyle of emotional triage or mind body medicine. Like, that's what I say to my clients all the time. I call it emotional triage. I'm like, I'm going to teach you how to check in with your brain and how to get aware of your thoughts and how to even believe that your thoughts govern so much of your decision making and your experience in your life. And once you have that concept, like we may not sort your problem in 8 weeks 100%, but you got that concept, so you've got the tools.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, I really want a metabolism reset. So the thing I've had the most success with in my life when it comes to weight loss that isn't calorie restricting is arguably always whole food, like whole foods. So I always kind of default back to Whole30 because I'm not one of the girls that wants to give up the carbs. Don't really believe in that for women.
That's a good idea either.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, like neither one of us are dietitians, but we just know. Like I'm like, women and everybody was supposed to live on carbs. But
well,
I also
actually, let me just add.
Yeah,
in that podcast I was listening to, they were talking about how carbs are essential to your water balancing, and when you go too low carb, your body hangs on to water. What were we just saying about like the weight and sends it to those organs to protect the area? So I'm with you.
I mean, we can argue these people get super skinny, but I bet they like put their weight back on. You know what I mean? Like I'm always curious, like what happens. I mean, you don't see everybody's full story. Like I've got friends who they have been super low carb for years, but I don't have any carnivore women friends. Like I'll be honest. And one of the reasons, I mean, just to briefly touch on my convictions about food, because I know people come to me every day and I myself struggle with this. It's like every single way gets results. You could be a vegan and get results. You could be carnivore and get results. You could be Whole30 and get results. Like if you really looked at all of it as a whole, like everybody is having successes. So there's massive overwhelm, at least for me, when it comes to like what to do. Like there's overwhelm. Like I'm like, so-and-so guru saying only nervous system works. So-and-so guru saying only this. So-and-so guru. It's like, you could literally go for that. The thing that I have found the most interesting is this concept of like when people get results, it's like, okay, they're either starving and fasting, right? Which is fine. Or they're doing some form of mono eating. So if you're carnivore, you're using like one type of digestive enzyme. So you're eating like the majority of that, right? You're eating like meat, fruit. Like you're not doing this American thing where we combine all the food together and eat it. And then we have to spend a lot of energy assimilating that information in the digestive system. And if we're not in rest and digest, that energy increases. I have a theory that that's why, like Gershman, for example, or Gershon Cancer Center, sorry, they remove digestion just for the simple fact of like your body will go into a state of healing. That's the reason why fasting works too. You're removing that. Like you're just basically saying, okay, body, you can have a break. You don't have to assimilate as much information. And because of how much you study the brain, we're coming across like 30,000 pieces of information a minute. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a lot. It's like the body's breaking down that info. So if you are in a state of fight or flight, we can't argue that that's a problem, right? That will throw off how you retain and how you lose and all that stuff. So with that idea, I'm like, I've been exploring food for a long time. It's like, what's the perfect diet? Well, like, I think you just have to you have to intuitively be knowing the season you're in, right? It's like they say, when you're breastfeeding, you don't really want to do, extreme elimination diets because you need the calories, you need the energy, you need that stuff. So I'm breastfeeding now. So the safest thing and best thing I have seen out there, and the one thing that I'm really a fan of, happens to be Whole30. Reason being, I think when you remove some of the big inflammatories like dairy, gluten, and dairy, gluten, grains, and sugar, which is basically what that diet is. You eat meat, fruit, vegetables. You get a chance for your body to see how it really does. You know what I mean? And that's why a lot of people get the weight loss. That's why they lose the inflammation, which is a lot of what I want to work on. And then with the Better Me app, this is just a way of like getting movement, because one of the things that Maura and I are not going to bring to the group is we're not going to do meal plans and recipes, and we're not going to do workout plans. Like we're not going to be on there working out like here's your sets to do whatever. Like these are the two tools that we think can open the pathways to the mind body work that her and I are going to do, like the mind body work. Because I'm like, when you do literally remove your interference, your pathways function better. We talk about that all the time. So we really want, that's the basis behind those two tools, which are what I suggest everybody that comes into the group use, and everybody just kind of use in their life anyway if they have a goal that's weight loss.
Yeah. And I think the kind of throwing back to something that you said earlier, I mean, we're not discounting the effects of what you eat and movement.
No.
But coming to it from a punishment stand or a place of I don't like my body, blah, 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 is going to be counterproductive. When you are, like you said, coming to it from a place of love, coming to it like doing the movement that you enjoy. Doing the movement, the workouts. I think the workouts on that app are pretty freaking good.
I'm doing the dance one. I'm like, the dance ones are amazing.
Like, I have to look those up. I've been doing the Pilates one, but I get like mad because I'm like, 15 calories. But I got some good like strength building that I clearly needed.
Well, I feel the same way about that as enemas. I'll be really honest. It's just like the time, right? Like I'm often like, if I go on a walk or I'm moving, I just have time to think. I just have less distractions. I always ask myself this question, y'all. I'm always like, why does that work? Always. I have this natural curiosity. That's my main question. That's why I'm out there like railing on holistic influencers that are like, my one way is the way, right? And like, I had somebody message me the other day in my DMs and she's like, I love you, but your ego sometimes is like out of control. She's like, you're always tearing down like other people. And I'm like, I'm just questioning. Like, I don't have any reason to tear somebody's modality down. In fact, I'm the first person to say you'll probably get results with all of those if you're actually doing the mind body work. Like, but that's the question, right? Why does that work? Why does working out work? Does working out work because you're moving your body and your body needs you to work out and move? Yeah, but why? Because we were innately downloaded to play, to move, to hunter gather. Like that is it. Like, why does cold plunging work? Because we were innately designed to face challenges, and that gives you a survival challenge. Like, I'm like, cold plunging melts brown fat because it puts you into a temporary state of fight or flight, and then suddenly you, which I'm going to cold plunge during this as well, but suddenly you remember that I'm freaking strong. Like, I'm freaking badass. Like, if I get this, you might not recognize it in a microsecond, or if you're playing the victim to the therapy, you'll miss it. Like, you'll go, I have to do cold plunging. So, and then you will not get results. Like, I have been in victim mentality about working out for 4 years, and it has stalled the entirety of my life. Like, I'm like, this is so crazy. Like, I'll be like, I have to work out. Like, now I'm like, what if I work out and get breakthrough? Like, what a wild time.
Yes. And it's not all one thing or another. I knew a gal who, she and her husband owned a gym. I mean, just a traditional, like one of those gyms where you go and you do the ropes and like, so it's kind of, God, I can't even remember. What's that called? Where they do like the functional-ish kind of movement.
Kines. Hang on.
Anyway, somebody will say. Anyway, the thing that stuck with me about their gym that made them different was that before you even started a warm up, they had you lay on the mat for like 3 minutes and breathe deeply. She's like, everybody comes in here in fight or flight. They were like running from one thing to another. And it's not going to be effective with your workout. And then they capped the end of the workout. They put you back. They had you do the same thing. And
that's cool.
It's freaking brilliant. Like I've been doing it, legs up the wall, something like that, just for like 3 to 5 minutes, several times a day. So it doesn't have to learn nothing. Like you can take little pieces that work for you and like put it in like that. That just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what when you in your, okay, I want to explore like, so with your weight, you're so cute, but you want to lose like your weight down the middle. It makes me laugh because you dance all the time. You literally hit the club scene. Like you're crazy compared to me.
Okay. But this is the thing. I was telling myself that, and the Better Me app helped me realize that number one, I mean, it's great movement, but I mean, once a week is not enough for that to offset what I do the rest of the time.
Okay.
So I was trying to dance once or twice a week. Sometimes I wasn't making it. Now I'm like, I want to be dancing. I love it. I want to be dancing. Like yesterday, I did 30 minutes and I did my technique in front of the mirror. And I was like, oh, that's double. And it was fun. It was like play for me. And like,
Cool.
okay, so that's inspiring me to do that. But yeah, I didn't perceive myself as being a person who doesn't do a lot of movement, but I definitely have room to improve.
Nothing like some good, honest truth.
Yes. This app is not trying to be nice to my feelings. So let me
Like
see.
some good reality. I know Frank's like, he was telling me, he's like, are you gonna give up chocolate chips? I was like, I mean, somebody should be able to eat the odd chocolate chip. He's like, a bag a week. Like, okay. Chocolate chips
Well, yeah, the odd one.
He's like, you eat chocolate chips all the time. I was like, I am aware that I have a chocolate chip problem. It's like,
Yes.
and I tell myself, like, because they're enjoy life and they're healthy chocolate chips, like it's totally fine, right? But I'm like, if you're not feeding yourself like a lunch and you're eating chocolate chips to get through and like really hydrated, probably not that great, right?
See,
Like,
these are the things. See, these are the things when you're like, if it was a really obvious answer, what would it be? And if you're laughing at yourself at the end, you've hit it. Like, oh yeah, I had chips and French fries and a dessert like 5 days this week. Okay, no wonder my scale went up.
Yeah, totally. And it's like yes. And I'm so excited to pull everybody out of this like duality of good and bad too. Like or this whole notion of good and bad because it's just like a learning experience, right? Like I'm like deviating from my like fueling myself well has not been bad, but it's been interesting. Like I'm like, when like what happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm like when I was like my ideal weight, even after getting through autoimmune crisis that put me like way down, like the lowest was like 117. I was on like super elimination, like what most people do. I mean, I was juicing and doing the Gersman protocol. So like obviously you're super thin. Then I got back to my set point, which was like about 120. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like my actual weight. Like
you were basically doing a protocol for the big C.
Yes, because I had to. Like I'm like I was nursing at the same time. So like
Wow.
it was crazy. Like looking back, I'm like, I can't even believe I survived that. I will say though that I got the breakthrough. I did tons of mind work. My hair regrew. It was crazy. Like what happened? Like I thought it was going to be a lot. I got the breakthrough because I wasn't focused on reaching for food. Like to be honest, like I was like really just doing that. And I got a lot of breakthrough in the liver. I did that to restore and regenerate the liver and gallbladder, which was like in bad shape after, and to really tackle some really heavy metal issues. Sorry. Like I had some heavy metal issues. I couldn't even think. I'm like, it wasn't mold. I almost said mold, but I'm like, it wasn't mold. But yeah, like my set point, I was like, I was fine. I had reintroduced some stuff. I would eat gluten-free waffles every now and again. Like I was okay. Like I could enjoy the odd coffee. Like, but now the deal is like that stuff has taken the place of super nutritious food. So I'm like super excited to get back to it and then bring the deep work and how we both just kind of check ourselves and renew our mind all the time because we know that that's the deal, right? You can do all the stuff in the world, but if you're having that resistance or if you are doing it and not having results, there's a missing piece. So I posted in my reel, you've posted in your reel that we want to bring that to the group and just, a little bit expand on like your part of that. So what are you bringing as, I mean, I know what you're bringing, but I'm excited to hear you share even more that you've developed. And then I'll kind of talk about what that's going to look like.
Yeah. So I love to explore the German new medicine piece. Like you said, the work that you do once you realize what your conflicts are, what is your body reacting to and what is making your body feel like, oh, things we need to be in fight or flight. We're running this program. We have this expectation of this particular type of stress. And so we need to constantly be on guard for it. We can kind of read the body to understand where it is. So where are you holding your weight? Is it more in the midsection or is it that fupa? Is it in the thighs? Is it in your face? that will tell us more about what's going on and where to kind of start looking for the conflict. And the thing that hits is like, oh, okay, this is what we need to get at. And like you're saying, when you do this work and you start getting in the habit of being aware of your conflicts, being aware of when it comes up, and you start just being curious about it and working with it, it resolves in a way that you will never go back. You will never once you've resolved it and you've healed through it and you start to kind of recognize, oh, that was a little trigger for it, until maybe you've resolved it enough that the same old triggers are not the same. It's such a dramatic learning that the coping mechanisms that you've had to do in the past, the stress eating, or like I was saying, like the numbing out to eat, it changes, as well as your body's perception that it needs to hang on to that weight. So I have already created a hypnosis about feeling connected instead of feeling abandoned, feeling safe instead of feeling like you're fighting for your survival. Also am doing creating a resource on the FUPA and what organs are under that and what are the conflicts with it, so we can work through those. Since a lot of people hold through their midsection, there's a lot of digestive organs in those. And so what are the conflicts having to do with the liver, the gallbladder, the small and large intestine, the stomach, the pancreatic gland and vessels? Like, let's map that out a little bit and get a resource for that as well. And then something I know you were going to do coffee enemas. I love, 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 love coffee enemas. So I was going to create a hypnosis for release to get the most out of those coffee enemas.
Oh, I love that. I'm excited to see that. I'm like,
coffee is amazing. Just on its own. But
I need to put that hypnosis on Interbrew's blog. So remind me, we should put that out there like publicly.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, because you can like sell it or not sell it. Like, we should put that on Interbrew's blog, because like that's a good point. Like I always say, I ripped this off Dr. Bradley Campbell, but he says do your drugs with intention. I read that one time and I was like, oh, okay, this is the missing piece. Like, because I had a belief system. Well, I help my clients break through belief systems and also put their body into safety. And I realized through my own journey through chronic illness, working with functional medicine, that I had this extreme fear of taking the supplements, even the supplements that were, supposed to heal you, right? Like even ones that were like whole food, like ones that were like, I mean, just literally just food. Like not all of them are made like that. I mean, hindsight, in the interest of looking at the duality, it was like, okay, I was meant to learn the lessons. You didn't need the supplements to heal. Okay, got it. But I also think there's something to be said for the fear of not walking through a journey. So like my body was intuitively like, this is not necessarily what you need, but also I probably could have mitigated that fear and still gotten results. So that was the thing that I like toyed around with, was when I I had this extreme fear of coffee enemas, and I had a fear of Herx reactions, side effects, like one being gaslit by my background allopathy, but two, like the whole entire holistic space is like, oh, you're going to have reactions. You're going to have reactions. And I was just like, in my mind, I'm like, well, I don't even have time to heal, because how would I be able to mother and have reactions? Like it just set up this like crazy train of fear. And I realized like, one, I needed to reframe my mind around reactions. Like we both talk about this all the time. I woke up today feeling like what a lot would probably call chronic pain. Like I could not get out of bed. Like I told my husband, I'm like, you're gonna have to take the kids to school. I got to record with Maura. But I'm like, he's like, once you get up and get going, you're going to be fine. And I'm like, I knew that. Like, I knew I wasn't like sick. I was just like, something is going on. Like, and what's going on is the holidays are very challenging for me in multiple ways. And so that's the source of that. But this whole concept of how to mitigate reactions came to me. And just like you, with the hypnosis around release, I figured out that you need to neuroprompt your body into safety. So if you haven't been able to trust authority or a parent or something like that in your life, or you've had even on the extreme side, a traumatic experience, like you've had an abuse experience, or you've had an experience where someone's abused that power, it doesn't matter what I tell you to do, your body is not going to feel safe doing it. So with my coffee enemas, I teach my clients that I myself neuroprompt. So I hold whatever I'm going to take or do up to my heart chakra, and just for a moment, just take a deep breath and say, I'm Chelsea, only Chelsea. I'm safe to release, or I'm safe to heal. And then it's quick. It's like a 3-second process to do that. And now I just intuitively do it with all my supplements before I take them. It's like, you just put your body into a state of like, hey, I've said you're okay. It's almost like this micro reparenting. People do all this inner child work. So excited to see your release stuff for that. And this is really what everyone in this group's going to get. It's like, we both do intensives with women, and this is that in a mini condensed version. So this is essentially like a 60-day intensive where both of us are in a text thread. Like, you guys are going to get all of this in that thread every day. So you have us in there. There's a couple things that both of us have offers. Like Maura just said, her resources she put together. I'm going to drop my Calm Your Inner Chaos mindset, mind belief system rewiring course into there. I'm super excited about that, because that was a challenge I ran last January, was Calm Your Inner Chaos. So it was like how to heal without pills protocols. Like, I was really convicted of that after just the whole season of shopping for new modalities. I just cannot. I have to almost unplug. And me and you go really hard at, it's not really the next device. It's not really the next thing. Like, you can get that stuff, and that stuff can be super helpful. But people ask me all the time, they're like, oh, what device do you use to structure your water? I'm like, it's called my mind and rose. It's like, I don't own a fancy water system. Like, I don't own that. Like, we do distilled water, remineralize it. We buy in spring water in plastic damn jugs for my kids, because they will not drink spring water. And look, it's not ideal, but we couldn't put a whole home system on our house right yet. And I buy Amazon shower filters from Amazon. Like, I'm like, this is my entirety of water cost me $300 to set up. Like, it's,
I've been dabbling deeper in radionics. Like, our device is a radionics device. I've been learning a lot more about what that means. What are the options? What are blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And the thing that I am taking away, I was even telling my kids this morning, is that we always think of physical as being the most powerful. So we get this idea that, if you put your water in plastic, there's nothing that can overcome that, and that is so not true. So I was talking to them about last week. I could not get my kids to school on time for anything. So like the first day it happened, I was like, I really did sleep too late. So the next time I didn't. And then I shortened my routine for getting them up and all this stuff. And do you know, we did everything perfect one day and hit a trash truck. And then we hit a car accident. And then we hit a person who was like just parked basically in the middle of the intersection. Nobody could get, like, it was just things that were completely out of my control. And so I was using that experience to tell them, like, okay, we did the physical things, but then there's so much physical out of our control. When you use your mind and when you use your mind, you bring the spiritual on, which is basically what radionics is. Then you get the help of who knows whatever else is that you could never physically do. Like, I could never go drive everybody's car for them to clear my own path. But
I tell my kids all the time that that's where you start working in the God space, right?
Yes.
Like, that's where that whole concept, like, that our bodies are like embodied spiritual bodies, is like a thing. Like, I'm like, and we are radionics devices. Like, I'm like, we are that. Like, I tell my kids all the time, like, you can override your scenario. Like, you can reject people's energy. You can override people's energy. Like, we've all seen it. Someone can be in a really bad mood and someone can come in a really good mood and change your mood. Like, it's a very basic concept. And so the fact that we think we can't do that with water or food or whatever. And look, I have this depth of knowledge because my custody arrangement has been my biggest teacher. Like, and it has been my biggest gift in life. Like, I cannot control or even know or be a part of 50% of my kids' lives. So every 2 to 3 days, they're gone and back again. Like, so people don't understand. It's like, that has been such a wild thing to live out for 10 years, being like, this is the way we eat in our home. This is the way they eat in their home. This is the way we live in our home. Da, 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 da. Like, we don't have a smart home. They do. Like, arguably, there are drawdowns in my children's lives and they get breaks from it when they come here. Like, and there are also drawdowns on my side too. So I'm not sitting here in that perfect position. There's emotional stuff. There's more kids. There's other dynamics here other than the Wi-Fi and the things that I've pinpointed over there.
Yeah.
But it's like, my kids are thriving. Like, they're not sick. They're not, you know, they're not chronically ill anymore. They don't have allergies anymore. Like, we shifted all of that in the spiritual. We had no working relationship to do it together. And so even just that encouragement is going to be so fun. Like, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but I love getting to collaborate with you because, like, I'm married and you're a single mom. So, like, we bring all that perspective from, I mean, you've been married. It's like you would probably be the best wife ever. So I'm like, better than you.
Tell your friends, tell your single man friends.
Tell your friends. Maura's an amazing person. No, like, but it's so cool to bring that to experiences, right? Because I think people tend to play the victim in both. Like, because there's challenges in both. Like, I always say, people always say, I used to think I was destined to be single. This is like a true story. I used to think I'm just the person that's destined to be single. Like, because if my husband didn't align with me, I would be like, well, I know I'm right. I'm super connected to like source. So whatever. I used to really explore that idea. And now I'm like, that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, the reflection and the life experience that we get to live together is so amazing, but it's not without challenge. I tell my friends all the time, you have to consider another person with 100% of your decisions when you decide to enter into a contract with another person. Like, they just have to matter. It's like, not from a victim standpoint, but they do matter, you know? And people say, well, that's great. No, it's freaking challenging.
Oh, it's far easy to just do whatever I want.
I know, right?
I think is best.
But I'm sure you have challenge too, right? It's hard to be like a provider role when you're not in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to, I'm not saying you embrace the masculine, but weirdly, like, I find that single people, mothers especially, they're in two roles. Like, they're not trying to be super masculine. You have your dad's father involved, which he's great. So that's different. But it's just interesting how there's pressure. There's pressure all the time. So I want to explore some of that pressure in the group too. Like, just like, what's our environment like? How does it dictate how we respond to it? Like, something that I know for sure is that I had a tendency of like bracing myself or protecting myself for the next thing, like living in this pattern of what's next around the corner. It's what the hell's about to happen. You know what I mean? And so I felt like a lot of it was a result of putting on weight or, you know, like that kind of thing. Also, like, you know, protecting myself from stuff that my ex-husband could do. Like, that also, the perception of that has contributed to some of my weight stuff. Like, I'm like, it's been interesting. And then this whole heart thing is just something I want to flesh out. So I'm excited. So essentially the group is going to be me and Maura in a text thread with you all. Whoever, we're going to cap it at 30 people. Like, and absolutely no one else is going to be able to get in because it's so much easier to do an intimate group. Also, I'm offering bioresonance scans to everybody in the group once a week. So I cannot do more than that with my time and intensives and machines. So I'm super excited about that. That's a pathway opener. So, you know, what the three systems that I'm going to scan are the digestive system. Obviously, we want to tackle any agitators in there, parasites, conditions, viral conditions, that kind of thing, constipation, that stuff that does really hold you up. The lymphatics, Maura is a lymphatic expert, so she could expand on that in just a second. And then what was the other? Oh, the nervous system, because we want to make sure that people are able to do the beautiful mind work that you're going to bring to the group. And then we're really just pulling everything that we give to our clients into the group.
With the focus. I'm so excited for the neuro prompts, and like the thing that just keeps coming back in is like bringing safety. It's like telling your body it's safe. We're safe. Yeah. And I think that the bioresonance, I mean, from my experience in my practice, will take people who are just so wrapped up and so deep in that cycle, and like kind of just open it for them so that suddenly where they couldn't shift themselves out easily, or they could for like half a second, but then they'd go back, they'd be like, in the chaos. It opens it for them, and it reminds them of where they are and who they are without that chaos.
Yeah.
And then,
totally.
Starts to
help
them build
it's like
upon
you
that.
feel it in your body, but you take it back over, right? Like I'm like, you have to feel it and just hang in that feeling. Like that's the hardest part to get used to, is that flow state. Like I don't really know another word to call it, but I will tell you, with my clients, it has never been, oh, the mold changed today. Oh, this changed today. Oh, this changed today. Like it has never been, oh, my minerals suddenly got better. Like I don't even look at that with my device. What with my clients, what comes up is like, oh, why did we move here? Like, oh, I don't think I'm designed to be in this job. Like you know what I mean? Like, oh, like I have resentment in my marriage. Like this is the stuff that comes up that is creating them being symptomatic. And so I don't even look at the things like the mold. I will actually like yell at my clients. Like I have a friend that I'm training right now, and she's always like, okay, flip on that button and show me everything allopathic that's in my gallbladder. And I'm like, you are doing this wrong. Like this is like, she like wants to know like what is wrong with her. And I'm like, what if you just started chasing what was right and asking yourself what was right? Like, who cares? Like, I'm like, so it's funny. I showed her my scan last night. I was like, you should see my scan. It has like 50 viruses in the colon. Like,
right now. I saw my last one was like terrible. I was like, oh, well, I am
everything from like procystitis to like Hep C. I'm like, this is so fun. I had like so much in there. Like, I'm like,
we as women, I mean, probably men too, but we really are trained by the allopathic model to like do breast exams, look at the lumps, and like to do like, even if you're doing natural family planning, like to touch our own bodies in this like a stranger would. Like if you went to the doctor and like that random person in scrubs comes and checks your breast and checks your cervix and like all of this stuff. And one thing that I learned through another woman's work is like, what if we started touching ourselves in pleasure? And I don't even necessarily mean sexual pleasure, but like loving, caring. Like she teaches about breast massage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I will do a breast massage every day before I'll do a breast exam once a month. Like
totally. Yes. Like bringing that nurture, right?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
I mean, we see, I see 98% of my scans have pancreas blockage, right? Whatever the reason. And that's always needing nurture, not savoring the sweetness of life. Like that's like this emotional pattern of that. And like the pancreas is like almost always chronic in every person in that. Like I myself on and off fluctuate in that, but it is the simple thing of like, hey, we are going to teach you that your body is freaking miraculous. Like I told my 16-year-old daughter the other day, we were driving in the car, and she's flipping her mind because she is so interested in what I do. And like, obviously we've kind of reset so much of our relationship dynamic, but she still has a tendency to be like, she has like a fear of sickness. Like she's like, I don't want to deal with symptoms, which I'm like, that's fair. Nobody wants to deal with symptoms. So she's always talking. She's like, so-and-so's been sick for like 6 days, and so-and-so's been sick for like X amount of days. So she's like, if you're sick, don't come near me. Like she'll say, like, if we're like having any kind of symptoms, she's like, I'm shutting myself in my room. And I'm like, but the other day she was like, explain to me like how you can catch something. And I was like, complete bullshit. I was like,
yes.
I was like,
you don't.
Lainey, I'm like, your friends that you see being sick, like you're not getting their symptoms. And even if you are, you're getting them in like a different way. Like your one friend might be having like a stomach thing, and then you're having like a throat thing. Like I'm like, because you struggle with a throat communication chakra thing, and she probably struggles with not being able to digest. Like that was just, I don't know her story, but I'm saying that's just probably what it is. Yeah. Indigestible morsel. Like that's always my go-to too. If I'm going to get not well, I'm going to get diarrhea or get a digestive issue. That's just,
mine's always sinuses.
Isn't that so funny? Like, that's so funny. I never like rarely. I'm saying I can count on one hand, and that 7-week one was probably the first one in 7 years when I've had sinus issues or like a stuffy nose. Like I just don't get upper respiratory stuff because I don't hang on to grief. But we talk liver and anger and rage, girl, I'm good at that.
And that'll be a great thing to like bring to the group, like that people will be taking a totally different way of looking at your body, looking at your symptoms, not excluding the other things, but just like, hey, we're looking holistically. And like Chelsea and I have devoted our careers to helping people find the pieces that they're missing, which is usually the emotional, spiritual, like, because we're all of that.
Yeah, we just want you to know that your body is freaking amazing, right? Yeah. It's made in the image of God. It's amazing. It's not failing. It's doing whatever it is to protect you. And our hope is that with the group, you pull out of needing to be protected by you, like into this deep place of like provided for, but embodied like masculine and feminine. Like, I mean, I could get so deep into right now what I believe is the age shift as well, but I won't. I'm going to leave it there because we both have a hard stop.
Yeah, we'll do it in the group.
Yeah, we'll do it in the group. So, I mean,
we're going to do some lives. Did we say we're going to do some lives? You're going to do neuro prompts, the bioresonance feedback, and then the daily accountability. We really want it to be an intimate, close group where you feel really well supported, that you're inspiring each other, that you're getting like what you were saying earlier. Like I get so many ideas just from our friendship and our relationship. You'll just like share something that you did. I'm like, I never thought of that. Great idea, Chelsea.
I know, same.
So times 32 that we'll have.
Yeah.
32
for like, yeah. And I just want to put an emphasis on there's nothing you have to take.
Amen.
No pills, no protocols. Nothing you have to take. I mean, if you want to buy some coffee and you want to buy some Maura has a really unique frequency patch. Like it's a really great stimulator for the body for your light codes in the body, or that's how I understand it. Like we'll put all that info in the group, but these things are like optional things for if you want to enhance your experience. So I think it's going to be so fun. I'm glad that you jumped on and chatted with me this morning about what it's going to be all about. And I think we dropped some good nuggets in this. So I will definitely turn this into a bit of a podcast as well so people can listen to it. And in the show notes, if you all want to join the group, that is from now until what's that first Monday in January? January 1st is like
the start date.
Yeah,
the 6th. But we're only holding enrollment open until the day after Christmas, December 26th.
Right. Like, wait, yes. Yeah, that's right. I'm like, are we? No, we might. I'm like, yeah.
We'll clarify that.
Enrollment is like December, and then we're going to start in January, right?
So but we'll start talking before January.
Yeah, we're not going to take anybody else. Once you enroll, though, like we'll put you in the group. Like we're already going to drop some things in the group. Like that group's opening today, so I'm super excited about that. We will both link in our bios where to buy and enter into the challenge. So it's going to be super exciting. Super deep discount from what Maura and I's normal 4-figure intensive is. So I'm really excited.
Why we're doing, I'm just plugging in my computer, why we're doing 8 weeks instead of just 4.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you can expand on that if you want. I was initially going to do 4, but Maura actually suggested do 8, which I actually think is a better idea. So I'm looking forward to that.
And my reason was just that so many people get to week 3, week 4, and they're like, they're still using pill for an ill thinking at that point. We want to get you over the hump. Like, it seems like, and this is probably, I think you've noticed this in your intensives too, that 3 to 5 week, there's just like this real sweet spot where people really have to challenge themselves to push through and have dramatic changes. Yes. So if we quit at 4, we're going to miss out on that. We really want to help usher you through that dramatic change because this is, we're not using pill for an ill thinking. We're using like reframe your perspective, the way you think about your body, the way you think about how you feed it and move it, and like all the deeper things. We want you to get all the way through that.
Yeah, you're so right. I changed my intensive from 6 weeks to 8 weeks for that reason, because I was finding the bulk of the breakthrough was at week 5 or 6, or the
Mhm.
bulk of the belief system shifting was happening there. And I'm sure that there is tons of backed science behind the 30-day programs because they're everywhere. I know it takes a certain amount of times to experience something based on my career in advertising, and a times to form a habit. Like you guys, there's hundreds of thousands of books on the market about that, and they all kind of sweet spot in that 30-day range. Like it's like that's kind of what it 30 to 45 days is kind of like. I think you just establish a pattern of consistency and then you see results. Like you
Mhm.
see you see things differently. So yeah, we decided to do it 8 weeks, which is going to be so good. I'm envisioning most of those breakthroughs happening, after week 4
Mhm.
for sure. So I think your suggestion of that was like spot on. And just being able to walk that for like a longer length of time to where it really becomes a habit. Like that's essentially going to lead right into spring.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
right out of the winter where you should be releasing everything and everything should be transforming into new, like that would take us right into March.
Yeah,
So
beginning of March.
I am super excited. I can't wait. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thanks for chatting this morning. I will be catching up with you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. I'm so
All
excited.
right. Bye.
See ya.